I'm Cheryl Chumley. This is Bold and Blunt, giving you a Christian conservative view of news, politics, culture, and events. Sex trafficked in a Virginia public school. That's the topic of today's Bold and Blunt. And I'm your host, Cheryl Chumley, giving you a Christian conservative look at today's news, politics, culture, and events. And my guest today, Jonathan Emord, broke the story of a young girl who was actually sex trafficked in a Northern Virginia public school. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here on Bold and Blunt.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit about how you broke this very important case, where it stemmed from, and where it's headed.
Well, actually, both of the parents and their children came to me on a weekday evening and explained to me the whole nature of what's going on. And it's about as horrific as you can possibly imagine. It's unspeakable horrors that these children are experiencing. And the real amazing thing is that in 2012, the Fairfax County Public School System admitted that there were over 500 separate instances of sex trafficking in the Fairfax County Public Schools themselves. And that apparently they had knowledge of this going at least back to 2007. And in 2021, they admitted that every high school in Fairfax County and many middle schools and even some elementary schools have a gang-related sex trafficking problem.
Wow.
And they're doing virtually nothing to stop it. So I told these people that I would do everything I possibly could, and they've hired me to be their lawyer to advance this cause to try to stop this, because it's just, I cannot tell you, I cannot put in words without just being overwhelmed, the actual extent of the incredible abuses these little girls experienced. One was just 12 years old, was taken from her middle school. The other one was 14 years old, a freshman, and was taken from her high school.
You mean physically removed by the traffickers during the course of the school day?
Well, the way this thing works is the traffickers are actually students. They are affiliated with the gangs. They're part of the MS-13 gangs or other gangs. And they what they do is they seduce the girls through a process of grooming that they are good at and adept at doing. And they choose their targets based ordinarily upon girls who are withdrawn, don't have that many friends, that appear to be shy or easily manipulated. And then they befriend them, they show interest in them, they try to seduce them. And then as soon as there's this first sexual interaction, they threaten them. And they threaten them, they tell them they'll kill their parents, they'll kill their siblings if they don't continue to traffic. They videotape them frequently so that they can embarrass them. They tell them that they'll humiliate them in front of teachers or other authority figures if they don't do what they tell them to do. And they prey upon suburban girls principally, because unlike street savvy city dwellers, a lot of the suburban children are cloistered more or less and are largely entirely unaware of the threat. So as a consequence, they can be readily picked off. And when you consider the numbers, I mean, by their own admission, 500 separate instances in the Fairfax County school system as of 2012. And that is known to be substantially higher. Police Detective Bill Wolf for the Fairfax County Police, retired, now running for the state Senate, is an expert in this. He was involved in sting operations with these gangs in Northern Virginia. In fact, one of my clients, he saved the woman's daughter from sex trafficking. She was going to be sold from a Northern Virginia gang to a New York gang, and most likely would have resulted in death for her. And he intervened with a sting operation and saved her.
Jonathan, let me cut in real quick, because we don't have a lot of time, and I want to get to the question of the schools admitted that they knew this was happening and they haven't tried to stop it. Could you walk us through how that works?
So apparently, because of fear of political ramifications, if general public awareness is made, of this, they've shied away from this. They've suppressed information. They dissuade teachers from getting involved. They refer to this as a boy-girl thing, that the boy is actually a boyfriend, and that the sexual relationships are consensual, as if under the law it was even possible for a minor to consent to sexual relationships. The whole culture in the schools is in favor of avoidance of teacher involvement. The discipline is just at an all-time low. So they stand back and they allow these things to happen. And then when push comes to shove, and they're in a situation where they have to account, they start coming up with excuses, saying that, it appeared to them to be consensual. It appeared to them that that one person was being hysterical and was exaggerating. We talked to the boy and the boy said that the girl was his girlfriend. All this kind of rubbish, which they know is nonsense, they throw up in the face of those investigating, in an effort to shield themselves from the very accountability that they must have.
Is this the same school system that we just heard about in the news in the last year or two about the transgender attacks, the boy dressing as a girl attacking the girls in the bathrooms?
That's the Loudoun County Public Schools.
Okay.
This is all, remember now, these traffickers are operating in Northern Virginia. So they're just as they are in the Fairfax County Public Schools, they're also operating in the Loudoun County Public Schools as well. And the same approach of denial of responsibility, of refusal to take accountability, happens in those schools, as we know from what happened in that instance, where the superintendent of schools actually lied about not knowing, he said, that it took place, and the details of it, when in fact all the evidence shows that he did know. And just really, again, is trying to avoid political accountability for the utter failures that are happening. And notice, you can't have a woke agenda operating in the schools without feeding into trafficking. When you sexualize children prematurely and you make them think of sex as not as a basically simple thing instead of a momentous thing, well, then of course you're going to see more of that in the schools. And they belittle religion. They basically replace parenting with this awful movement to sexualize kids at such young ages. So when you do that, you make them more vulnerable to traffickers who prey upon these kids. And that's what's happening.
So last question, Jonathan, you as a constitutional attorney, and you're also running for U.S. Senate with a primary, I think it's in June, July of next year, the election in November. What can you do, not just for this family with this girl as a victim, but for all the victims?
So I've drafted state legislation, which will do a number of things to ensure that we interdict these things in the schools. We have direct reporting under this legislation from officers put into the schools to the Attorney General of Virginia, and give the Attorney General of Virginia direct authority to prosecute, as well as enabling the sheriff's offices too to be involved and prosecute. Also, I have federal legislation that I've drafted that would make a office inside the United States Attorney's Office, an assistant United States attorney specifically dedicated in each jurisdiction to sex trafficking, to ensure that there's more prosecution. In the end, right now, I have to say that if you have your child in one of these schools, you really ought to consider taking them out, because I do not believe that any child is safe in the public schools in Northern Virginia.
Very shocking story, and thankfully you're looking into it. I want to thank you for being on Bold and Blunt. You'll have to come back and give an update on how this goes, because I think there are a lot of parents out there who are anxious about their kids in school right now, and as you point out, rightly so. Thank you for being my guest, and if you want to subscribe to Bold and Blunt, please do so at WashingtonTimes.com. Thank you.